Joanne. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for spending some time with us today. This turns out to be a fairly popular topic. We got very good response to this. There's a lot going on out there in the Microsoft world with Skype, and a lot of people, I think, are starting to dig in deep and get as much information as they can. So we're glad that we have a chance to talk about where we fit into that world. Some of you probably know us, some of you probably don't. We have a long history in the communication software market, founded in 1982, and we've been in this market continually since then. And while we have millions and millions of users, because our application tends to sit in the back room, we're not the best known name out there. We are recognized in the industry, however, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go forward. But we have been delivering these types of solutions to enterprises for quite a while now. And if you look at what we do, we deliver communication software. It's our belief that we can improve productivity, customer response, etc., with good solutions. And over the years, it's kind of split itself into a couple of different areas. What an enterprise needs in the way of communications tools varies. It must have been very easy to be in the work environment 20 years ago when everyone came to work and sat at a desk and had a telephone and worked for whatever the business hours were and left. It's gotten much more complex. Obviously, many people don't come into work at all. Many people are there sometimes on the move, mobility, all these challenges have changed the tools you need to effectively communicate. And they've kind of fractured the market into a couple of categories. Certainly what individuals use now is one of the biggest challenges. Individuals, they just don't sit still. They have different locations, they have different devices, they have different states they're in depending on all the other tools they're using. So we have a lot of software that really focuses on the mobility aspect for individuals. And then on the other side of the screen, businesses, that's kind of the core incoming number. That's the older technology. But even that has changed. A lot of that's being speech-enabled and goes along those lines. And then the new piece that's popping up in the middle there are teams or collaboration. We're working differently. It's not that we always haven't had teams, but in the past, teams meant, again, 8 people get in a conference room and work on something. Today, because of the kind of dispersed nature of business locations, collaboration is a challenge kind of wrapped around the communication tools that you have. And we're going to talk a little bit about all these categories as we look at what we do that helps us kind of enable the Skype users to handle those kinds of challenges. The reason we're here is we started in the early game doing voicemail, and we've continued to grow that product. And while we still focus on replacing those legacy systems, we're recognized as the leader in replacing legacy voicemails. At the same time, we need to keep an eye on what's going on in terms of the newer technologies, the cloud, IP in general, and certainly Skype for Business, a major piece of business that's developing now. And while we're doing all that, we have to keep an eye on all the different solutions, because every one of those changes every time we add a new device, every time we add a new location. All of those become more complex, but again, great opportunities to offer enhancements to business users. We were very lucky when we were founded. We were founded by some people that gave us an architecture that's let us stay healthy in this business for a long time. It's a true data 3-tier architecture. There's a core central service engine. On top of that are applications modules, and connecting into that are interoperability pieces. And that's let us, that unique kind of architecture has let us grow over the years and kind of become one of the dominant enterprise players. And that is because we literally can say, we don't care what you have or how you've deployed it, our solutions are going to work there. And as you start changing it, moving to a voice over IP infrastructure, moving to Skype, all those same solutions move right ahead with you. We're not owned by a phone company or a router company or anyone else. So our target is everyone. We believe we should be able to make our solutions, engineer them correctly, so in any environment we can deliver all the functionality that we have, with just some changes in software and no list of things you have to rip and replace, to come up to speed. A lot of people are very surprised to find out that all of the features we offer on our system, while they work great in all the new voice over IP kinds of environments, everything we have can also be deployed in an older, even an analog type TDM environment. We've spent a lot of time on these integration pieces. And of course, we keep very busy, and one of the things we've been busy with lately is Skype for Business. So Skype for Business, or Link as it started out, well, Office Communication Server, as it started out with, was an interesting product from the beginning. It had definite communication pieces to it. It was unclear in the very early days how Microsoft would position it, but they made it clear 3 or 4 years ago, and they pushed forward with Lync as a PBX replacement. And in the beginning, lots of people made fun of them because they didn't have a lot of the pieces they needed, and who would ever think of Lync for that? But they've been very, very successful. They are definitely serious about this. We recognized that quite a few years ago. We started working really hard to see how we could fit into that world, add value to those customers. And at one point in time, we had to be up here in the same area as Microsoft is, up in the Seattle area. We actually had a meeting with them where we said, here are some issues you're going to have in deploying some of these out to customers. We know this market, and we can solve some of these for you. And they just said, we're really not interested right now. Thank you for your time. But about 1.5 years later, they came and knocked on our door and said, you were correct about some of that. There are some problems we have when we're trying to deploy Lync. And if we recall, you have some solutions that might be helpful. And so that started our arrangement with Microsoft, where while they don't do anything officially with us, we're certified in some of those kind of things, but they tend to get into an environment where there's issues with a Lync deployment, and they know we can solve those, and they take their VAR or their business partner, put them in touch with us. And as a result, we're getting a lot of Lync experience, and I think it's interesting for anyone going into the Lync world as an end user to kind of, early as you can, catch some of these issues to understand how you're going to deal with them. So that's part of what we're going to do today. Is we're going to talk about some of the challenges when you deploy Skype for Business as your telephony replacement. We're not going to talk about all the wonderful, great things it does. There's great webinars from Microsoft about that. We believe it's a very valuable tool. The way Microsoft has deployed it and where they're moving towards offers very unique advantages in productivity. But there's still some areas we think where we can add value. It's pretty interesting as we talk to enterprise customers, about 80% of them are doing something with Lync. They're in the planning stages. They've already started to deploy it. Some have completely deployed it. But they also kind of have a different way of looking at it than they did maybe when they did traditional telephony replacements. Most are talking about migrating to Skype over time. They're still a little cautious. It's a major change, not just in infrastructure, but it's a major change for users in terms of, somebody that's been at your company for 15 years with a telephone at their desk, and you're now asking them to change kind of how that works. While there's great benefit being offered, change is change, and it has to be approached carefully. A few people are actually doing the rip and replace. They're taking out their entire infrastructure and going to Skype just as if they were replacing it with a voice, a traditional voice over IP infrastructure, but not as many of those. And one of the things that's great to start with when you think about our product is because of that level of integration we have with everything out there, we're really the ideal product for any multi-site enterprise that maybe is saying, so we're going to start in a couple of our smaller offices and we're going to roll out Skype for Business. Now, if you just roll out Skype for Business and everything that comes along with it, including using Exchange, Microsoft Exchange, as the voicemail store and call processing engine, there's some challenges there. And the very first one is you will create a technology island for that branch or those branches that you roll out. They will be separate from your legacy environment. And if your plan is a 5-year plan to roll out across all those, that can be challenging. One of the great things about our product is you can go to one of your locations and put our system in and tie it to the systems in all your other locations. So you can go into your legacy environment, and maybe you're looking at replacing older Octels or call pilots right now in that environment. You can go with our system, and then components from our system can be installed in all your different offices, tying everything together into a single system, and that includes the ability to go to your locations where you're going to do Skype for Business. So one of the values we add is a way to step into this environment in a staged migration where you're not going to be carving off pieces of your company where it's difficult for other people to communicate with them. So if you're looking at a multi-site deployment, you probably should be at least getting with us to hear our story in terms of how we can do that. The trick for us is fairly simple. We figured out a way to sit behind Lync as a phone system, just like we sit behind every other phone system. So today you can take our product and hook it up to any phone system on the market, current or older, and we do all the functionality, voicemail, automated attendant, find me, follow me, custom IVR, all of that we do. And there's really not much difference in the link world or the Skype for Business world. We can program up on the link side a trusted application. The ports on our system become the trusted application pool, and we now offer full integration. So what does that mean? That means somebody calls in through the gateways, whatever structure that customer has in place, rings on a link extension. After 3 rings or whatever it is, it forwards to us. We answer the call. It's fully integrated. We take the message. From a message store point of view, we can put that message into Exchange, just like using Exchange We have all that functionality, have had for a lot longer than Exchange has. But as an option, and this is one of the important pieces from Microsoft's point of view, we can also choose not to put that message in Exchange. And for those customers that are worried about confidentiality and compliance, that's a major piece of what you need to consider. So we'll talk about those pieces as we move along here. The second thing is you can take that incoming call, run it through Link, through Skype for Business, straight into our system, and we can be the front-end automated attendant. And we are much more feature-rich. To be fair, Exchange for is a fairly new product in terms of, call management capabilities. It's not really very feature-rich. We've been doing this since 1985. Our first customer went in 1985. They actually could have recorded their name and greeting and still be using that same recorded name and greeting. We've been building this product on an open platform for that long. So we just have a much more rich feature set. And some of those features are going to be important as you look at moving. What's really unique in this picture is sitting behind Link, being the call processing system, is limited to 2 products, Exchange and us. No one else can do this. And that really gives us, kind of that entree into Microsoft, where when a customer says, I'm having problems with this particular feature, what else can I do if I want to roll out Skype? The answer is go see AVST and look at the CX-E product. The kind of things we do can't really be covered in a short webinar like this. We're just going to hit some of the highlights. One of the ones that we see right up front is the call routing capabilities. If you're using any kind of call routing on your traditional system at all, you're going to find Exchange just doesn't deliver it. It's just not really made for that. It can be a menu, it can do some simple transfers, but when you start getting into complex environments, multiple sites, multiple time zones, different divisions with different answering needs, complex call routing where, to one location you need to have some names in a directory and a different set of names in a different directory somewhere else, it's just going to fall apart. So if you're looking at going to Link, and basically you're thinking, that I need to migrate my existing legacy call processing piece over, look very carefully at Exchange and then come talk to us, which is what most people are doing right now. The speech automated attendant in particular, this is the direction everything's going in. And I still have people tell me, no, they're not going to do that. They don't, speech technology wouldn't be accepted by their callers, and that's fine. But like it or not, this is where everything's going. And once again, our speech automated attendant is almost 15 years old now, and we've been adding features to it continuously. We have a much more powerful kind of partition directory structure, unlimited alias names, disambiguation, the ability to, at one location when we answer a call and someone speaks a name, to look at just a segmented subset of the directory, group support for all kinds of local directories and local answering modes, departmental transfers, and an API for synchronization. So if you end up saying, in my speech automated attendant, I just don't want users, I have 1,000 other people that need to be in the directory, then we have a nice API that we can use to keep that all synchronized. Besides just a speech automated attendant directory, it's a full ASR menu. What that means is you can say, please say the first and last name of the person you're trying to reach. For operations, say operations. You can actually have nothing but speech commands in that front end. And that's something that the Exchange piece just really can't do. On the device side, it's extremely interesting. This did not come to us from Microsoft. Microsoft did not say, oh, here's another problem some of our users are having. This came from the VARs and the end users as started talking to them. I started this presentation talking about how complex our mobile environment is, and some people have 2 phone numbers today still. There's some that just have a mobile number and maybe a DID or a DDI, and that's fine. But more and more people have multiple devices. They have a home office number. They have a Skype number on their tablet. They have 1 or 2 mobile phones. They have their business number. They have a second business number when they're working at the other location. That is one of the challenges that Skype for Business just doesn't handle very well. With Skype, you have your client. Now, you can have multiple clients running on multiple devices, but you have that client, and then you have one other number, which is typically going to be your mobile number. So not really enough flexibility for some of the road warriors out there that want different kinds of devices working in different ways. And the other issue is both those numbers ring at once. So in my case, if I'm sitting at my desk and I have my iPad open in front of me and it's running a Link client, I have a Link client on my machine, I have my mobile phone sitting here, and my regular telephone sitting here. If I were using Link, which I do sometimes, although we have lots of options here, obviously, they all ring at once. So I have 4 devices that are ringing off the hook at me. And when you talk to Microsoft, Microsoft says, very simple to fix, turn the ringers off on the ones that you don't want to have ringing. Well, which ones you want to have ringing tend to change depending on your circumstances. And I don't know about you, but if I turn the ringer off on my mobile phone, I will find out about it later when somebody sends me an email saying, how come you're not answering your phone? So having everything have to ring at once is a very strong limitation. We have the most powerful call routing engine in the world. We do context routing. We're not going to ring all your devices. We're going to know where you are, what you're doing, what kind of device list you want to have active at any one time, and we're only going to use those devices. As an example, if I'm sitting in a meeting, when a call comes in, don't ring my desk phone, but ring my mobile device, but don't actually ring it. Send a data pop-up so I can do silent call screening when I'm in the meeting. Then when I come out of the meeting, go back and start sending calls to my phone. When I get in my car, start sending phones to my mobile device, but not with a data pop-up because that's really awkward in a car. When I answer, let me do call screening, with a prompt that says, hello, Neil Butler, you have a call. Please say accept, reject, announce. Those type of things make for a much more powerful call management set of tools than you're going to be able to find in the Link client. And the other one that's just maybe doesn't affect everyone is it isn't call routing by schedule. All your devices, all your phones ring all the time. So if somebody you're working with in the EMEA market says, I'm going to call and then I'm just going to leave him a message because I know he's not at work, and they call and they ask for you through the automated attendant, your devices are going to ring, even if it's 3 in the morning your time. There's no scheduling for the call control. So the whole incoming call management piece, from automated attendant right down to the how we handle devices, is not very strong with Skype, and we can enhance that. We can still, you still get all the other advantages. You just use us for the call routing management and the messaging piece to solve those problems. The larger the organization, the more complex the incoming call routing, the more issues you're going to have with Exchange UM. If you have multiple time zones and you need to route different DNS calls at different times of the day, and you have departments that start at 9 and end at 5, and other ones that start at 8 and end at 4, and you want to pre-program all your holidays, all of that piece is stuff we can do that you aren't going to find on the Exchange UM piece. And we allow our user to override that. So if I'm a user and my schedule says that I'm working from home today, therefore my calls are going to my Skype client because that's what I'll use when I'm at home. But then I get in the car because I have to go out and run an errand, I can manually override and say, okay, change my availability to mobile. And then when I'm going around shopping or whatever I'm doing, calls go there. When I walk back in the house, it switches back over to my Skype client. So those kind of more complex routing pieces, definitely stuff that you're going to find we do and nobody else really does. Now, the next piece is kind of a hybrid of the fact that we're going to be connected to Skype, but also one of the other applications we have. A lot of the calls that come into the organization through the automated attendant are going to work groups of various types. And now, in the work group world, you kind of have 2 choices. You have, on a traditional PBX, you have hunt groups. And then, of course, if you've looked at Skype at all, you probably know in Skype you have response groups, which aren't quite hunt groups. They're kind of similar. And then, of course, on the larger end, you have a lot of process workers, 50 people in a room doing the same task. There are contact centers piece. And you already know, if you need that, that's a third-party product in terms of adding on to Skype. And there's plenty of them out there. And those 2 kind of low-end, middle-end are handled fairly well, but I think you'll find some challenges with response groups in terms of it not being able to do some of the things you're already doing today. So one of the things that we can also put in with our solution is our sort of informal work group management tool called TeamQ. This is not for rooms full of workers doing the same thing. This is for a group of knowledge workers, workers who have personal call flow, personal workflow. Think of an IT help desk that takes a call, gets off that call. They don't just take the next call. They go out and do some research. They remote into the desktop of the person they're supporting. They might actually go out to the machine. They're done. They come back. Maybe they take their next call. Maybe they go on a research project. A hunt group doesn't really work for those people because they still have different skill sets. And a call center, a true ACD, doesn't work because they're not just taking call after call after call. So what we offer that's different is TeamQ. TeamQ answers the call for the caller, gathers metadata from them, gathers their callback number, runs a couple of questions by them, numeric input, menus, etc., takes all of that information and puts it on a screen. And now the agents, when they're ready to take a call, go to the screen, pick the thing that they have the skill set for, and take that call, or forward it to voicemail, or they move it to another group. It's a visual tool that's much better for these informal work groups. And the end result is I have multiple calls in the queue, but I don't have to take them in the order they came in. If there's less people with one particular skill set, like on this one, I only have one Linux specialist, that person would look over, and even though the Linux call is the newest call in the queue, they would take that call to move forward. So this kind of call control, visual call control for work groups really replaces what response groups would be used for. So if you run into shortcomings with response groups, that's another time where you might want to think of calling for us. So if you look at sort of our ability to handle all of those things that are out there, if you think about all the legacy pieces that you might have, and that includes custom applications. Quite often when you move away from your legacy environment and you move into the Skype environment, there'll be pieces of functionality that are missing. And some of those our product just does naturally, and for others, we have a custom development environment. So we have the ability to build custom applications, message escalation, calls from your website, click to call from your website, hot linking into your various administration applications. All of these pieces are something that we can do. It's a standard part of kind of the presentation we make to customers to find out what other communication issues you might be having issues with as you move to Skype. If we look at the kind of most logical approach in terms of why people come to us, and certainly why Microsoft sends people to it, it starts with messaging. The problem people have with storing messages in Exchange is fairly well known, and that's a major issue. And that's probably 80% of the conversations we have initially are because people don't want to store those messages in the Exchange server. We have a whole other webinar coming up all about that. You can you'll see an invitation for that. You can come and we'll kind of go through what we do in that area. The next biggest piece is the automated attendant, personal call management, enterprise call management, all of those pieces. Almost every customer, once we start talking to them, and sometimes they haven't gone too far down the path for Skype yet, and they're not quite aware of what some of those limitations are, but we'll almost also have an element of call management that they see that we'll be doing a better job at meeting their needs than Skype alone would. And then the custom IVR piece or the informal call center piece, all of those are available. So the thing to keep in mind with our product is we're not in any way trying to slow down the deployment of Skype as an infrastructure piece in the telephony world. We think the way it's tied together to other things in your industry and the direction everything's going in, it's a great tool. But we can enhance that experience by making up for a few of the shortcomings. And mostly that has to do with the pieces that are done by Exchange UM. Exchange UM, it's an okay message store, but it hasn't really evolved over the years to cover all those other things that are sort of critical to users in the message storage piece. And then the call management piece is the next piece. And we actually have a separate webinar completely on the informal call center piece that's out there. You should get an invitation for that as well. And we have that one for the voicemail piece. So if you're thinking about doing a Skype deployment, it'd probably be a nice thing to have a conversation with us, and we can go through and talk about the various pieces that we feel we can put in place to enhance that transition. And now we have some questions.
Okay, thanks, Neil. Yes, we do have a couple of questions queued up. And if you have a question that you have not yet submitted, you're welcome to put that in. You may have it minimized. If you use the orange arrow in the upper right corner, you'll find the question box. Okay, let's see. So first question, Neil, do we support always available SQL options?
So the way we're going to integrate with the system, we don't touch the SQL piece at all. Our integration to that trusted application is a SIP connection. So calls come through to us. Everything else that's on the link side is transparent for us. In our storage piece, if we're storing messages on our system, it won't have anything to do with their SQL deployment. And if we're putting messages into Exchange, then it's going to follow whatever they're using for Exchange. So there's no unique challenges made by any kind of deployment, actually, of the link environment.
Okay, next question. Are the administrator tools easy to use when setting up different auto attendants for departments?
Yeah, everybody's definition of easy to use is different. But I think anyone that has a question like that, we are happy to do a quick webinar with them, bring the tool up. It's a graphical tool. It's very, very, if you understand messaging and call management, you'll open that tool up and you'll understand, 90% of the things you're looking at. The other 10 will be new things we do you haven't seen. But it's all traditional, drop-down menus, that kind of environment. And we have a lot of tools for displaying the trees for, how the mailboxes are set up and things like that. I have to say, we can put you in touch with users. Almost every one of our users loves our admin tool.
Okay. Next question. What is our sweet spot as far as number of users and the minimum number of users?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. If you look at, we consider ourselves an enterprise player. And in a traditional telephone system environment, you probably wouldn't, if you're just going out to buy a 4-port voicemail for your phone system, you probably wouldn't consider us. And it just has to do with, because we run on our own hardware, whether it's virtual or physical, we don't really compete down in that low-end market. In terms of any enterprise with multiple sites, we're a prime candidate because of what we can do with multiple sites. In terms of scaling upwards, we are, pretty much the largest player out there. A single system can handle over 40,000 users without batting an eye, and probably as many locations as you have. So other than enterprise and small to medium business, if they need some of this functionality, we don't really partition ourselves off much that way.
Okay. Sorry, I had my phone on mute there. Let's see. Okay, Neil, next question. Our operators are currently off of an Avaya PBX. We use Skype as our messaging and conferencing platform. Is there a way to integrate Skype Auto Attendant with our existing Avaya platform to allow seamless transfer to multiple Avaya PBXs within our environment? It says we have 60 IDs with Avaya Session Manager.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about our product and the way it's put together. You could put a CX-E system in, connect it through Session Manager probably to your Avaya system, all your Avaya systems, put the Trusted Application SIP link in, and we now can transfer and route calls back and forth between them all. And that includes some, you can do some of that with gateways, but with gateways there's real limitations. The way we do it, that also means that if we transfer a call to a link client, even though it came in through your Avaya PBX, and they don't answer, that call actually can be put into voicemail, where with any other gateway arrangement, it would just ring until the caller hung up. So yes, that's exactly the kind of environment you would want to discuss with us, because our architecture lets us pull all that together in a way that's really easy for the users.
Okay. Neil, there's a question that says, can you be specific about what you see as the shortcomings of the Exchange message store? And certainly I know we're going to cover that, I think, on next week's webinar.
Sure.
If you want to expand on it a little bit here.
Yeah, it's the simple thing is a lot of customers believe that if they put voicemail messages into Exchange, that they are subject to the rules governing e-document communications. That's not being spelled out very well, anywhere where it's, really and white. But the truth is, customers who say, no, I don't want to put voice messages into Exchange, can't use Exchange UM as their message store. That's the easiest way to look at it. If you don't want to put messages in Exchange and you're going to deploy Skype, we're the only other option you have. Confidentiality is the other piece. We do a lot of large healthcare organizations, and we have a couple of different ways we do message store. For anyone that had confidential patient information where HIPAA was a concern, they will not want to put messages into their email store because the ability of those messages getting off-site and causing problems exists. So for those users, we'd configure them to leave their messages stored on our system and give them access to our secure GUI clients so they could still play them, but they couldn't forward them outside the system. For everyone else, the administration and management people who aren't concerned or are really constrained by HIPAA, they could put their messages into the Exchange store to take advantage of all the extra functionality you get by doing that. So that's kind of the, in a nutshell, confidentiality and compliance. Those concerns are what people come to talk to us about in terms of message storage.
Okay, there's a couple questions about our certification with Skype and Microsoft. So what official interoperability certifications do we have? Are we certified for Skype for B with Microsoft?
Yeah, so Microsoft, we were well down the path. You know, I said earlier, Microsoft sort of brought us into the fold because they wanted us to solve some of these problems. And they had us fast-tracked to get all the certifications, and then right in the middle they stopped and got rid of that program. There is no certification anymore. There was for Link, but there is no more certification program for Skype for Business. They may be bringing one back. They don't have one now. What we have in the way of certifications are certainly our Microsoft Gold status in both messaging and communications. So there's no one that's going to come to you and say, here's a Skype certified messaging application, because Microsoft is just out of that business right now in terms of certification.
Okay, another question. How well do we work with Windows phones?
As well as anyone does. So we don't have native clients for Windows phones. All the changes that they keep going through in operating systems and technologies they're using, it's made it really difficult. And to be fair, there's not much of a drive in enterprises for Windows phones. Could be this new Windows 10 movement is going to change that, and certainly if it does, building a native client is something we're very good at. What we still do, though, if you have a Windows phone, if we put your messages in Exchange, then you'll be able to get them from Exchange with your normal clients. We have a client for controlling your availability. It's a web browser-based client where, like I say, if I go and get my car and I want to change my availability, I can do that on the fly from that. But we don't have the call screening and those things that are part of our native app for Windows phones yet. I am actually the only person in our company that has a Windows phone. Well, Tess has them, but I'm the only one who actively uses them. And that's, I think, unfortunately representative of the enterprise market right now.
Okay, another question, Neil. Any concerns with Office 365 versus on-site Exchange?
I have to say in the beginning...
integration, right?
Yeah. So from a technology point of view, there's really no difference. They both use the same Exchange web services. We connect the same way. We provide the exact same feature set. Early on, there were definitely issues in terms of how quick those links worked. Took Microsoft a little time to figure out how to provision and build those centers fast enough that they didn't run into places where it was very, very slow. When it got very, very slow from your client's point of view, it got very, very slow from our application's point of view. But I have to say in the last year, people who've deployed Office 365, none of them have come back with any kind of, particular issues with how the time to get to your messages. In terms of the functionality, there are no issues. Everything that we do, we control message waiting lights, the user can access their calendar, all of that works exactly the same with Office 365.
Okay, another one. What about the API for directory synchronization? Can it integrate with Active Directory?
So yeah, our API basically lets you. Now this is something where someone would have to write some sort of program, but doing something like an extract from Active Directory and pushing that information into our database with our API is exactly what people use it for. And it can be as simple. We actually have a kind of a packaged part of that API where if you were to take and write a script that took Active Directory every night and extracted all your users and just the simple information about them, their names and phone numbers and things, and put that in a text file and put it in a directory that we could get to, every night when we run our routines, as a standard part of the feature, we could go out and scrape that information and update the database. If you want something more proactive, then somebody needs to write a program. But our API gives the programmer full access to the database. They can create users, they can delete users. You could have a website. You know, we have a company that runs events, and as part of what they're looking at doing, their website, when you sign up for an event, it's going to let you create your own mailbox. You can go and put some information in, hit OK, and you now have a voice mailbox triggered off one of the systems that they'll have at that event. So the API is very, very open, very well supported.
Okay, this might be the last question coming in. Let's see. So just confirmation, Neil, that TeamQ is not just for Skype? No, TeamQ, everything we have, every single feature we have works regardless. You could be with Skype, the latest and greatest from Microsoft, or you could have a Toshiba DK key system that's 20 years old. Our architecture design, you know, the starting point is what we make works everywhere. That's one of our rules. Okay. Thanks, Neil. It looks like that wraps up the questions. If anyone's still typing, we'll certainly follow up with you offline here. Again, thanks for taking the time to join us. I will hopefully see all of you on a future webinar very soon, and I'll let Neil close us up as well.
Thank you. Yeah, we do appreciate you coming in. We know you're battered and bruised from all the emails you get for webinars and people that want to give you all the wonderful information about their product. So I'm very happy that you at least found enough interest in how we contacted you to come and spend time with us. We love feedback. There's nothing more than we like than to have people call us back and say, like that webinar, didn't like it, needs to be longer, needs to be shorter. How about one on something? How about one on IVR or something like that? Because this is just really a great opportunity for us to get a chance to present part of our product, and hopefully it's based, it's focused on the solutions that'll solve the problems that you see out there, because that's definitely what our goal is. So thank you, everybody, for coming.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.
To learn more about AVST, please visit www.avst.com.